This is my video for Contemporary Practice Part 5. Now we are starting, or we've been asked in our brief, connections to do with planning and working with artefacts. So through here I've started making lots of notes in connection with the learning outcomes and becoming very familiarised with these. And I've started to build up some ideas in what way that I want to move this assignment forward from the previous work that has been carried out. So what I've done is, through selecting and sorting, I've worked through my photographs, which I'm a big fan of, taking photos, and selected and sorted the imagery and started making a plan and mind mapping, stroke planning, with ideas that will be relevant and that will work for this assignment. Planning areas of phases 1 and 2, and just looking and reflecting really on the work that I'd achieved so far with contemporary practice, and just making some notes of some ideas that are starting to come into my head. Here we can see the school report from my personal archive and just a few sketches of some masks and so forth, adding in previous samples and imagery, so that I'm just actually working with the planning visually and with as much writing as I possibly can. Through here we can see I've introduced some local history with the rubbings of the headstones, and what I did was I went back to my previous samples and I've included them in this assignment. One of the ideas that I have thought of, because I want to use paper fabrics, is to weave the paper, but I didn't actually use this technique, which I do regret. I decided to go with large scale sampling for the paper fabrics. Here I started to move off slightly. Different nights of the week came up with different suggestions, so I started doing some drawings of some faces. And the thing of dyslexia has started to appear as a theme, because I had a dyslexia test, and I thought it would be a good idea to start to use faces for emotion and feeling, and then maybe at some point translate these into masks, just some evidence of where I've got the work from. As you can see here, I've gone through some old assignment work, collecting imagery and research. Here I went back to contemporary context because I actually worked with some masks in that, so I've installed these. These are earlier masks. These were called my found masks from contemporary practice. So we can see that I've been working relatively along the lines of pretty much the mask I do started to evolve pretty early on. And through here we can see my research via Pinterest, via taking photographs of any imagery online, previous work, and ancient history, the faces of, which was very early on research for this assignment. So it's all relevant and wanting to keep it in this sketchbook. These are the sampled masks that I produced, inspired by Joshua Blake well, and here are the samples of the work. The textured paper, which really determined paper fabrics for this assignment. These were really fun to do, and the colour scheme was great. I had some great feedback on that. And then that followed on to research with my artists. Deborah Fell was a new one. Joshua Blake, well, is existing, but I expanded on that research. Joshua Good, I kept him in mind, and also here is where my colour palette came from, Keita Jackson. So as we progress, we can see that I'm continually making notes, and there are areas that I'm starting to isolate and make certain notes and decisions. The colour palette through here, photographic evidence that was turned into samples, and work from my previous sampling, which contained strong bold colour palettes. Made some nice paper fabrics. The photography paper worked really well. It was quite robust and resilient. So all of to use as a paper fabric. And then through here we can see that there's lots of documentation of the sampling. Now a lot of this has been replicated from my blog because I feel that the current situation at the moment with COVID and having online digital submission, I'm trying to include as much as possible so that my tutor can see the work that I have put into it. So I do consider that this has been very important to reflect on the sketchbook. As we can see, more continuous planning, note making, bullet pointing, more sampling of imagery, and you can see how it's all following through and it's all very relevant with the colour palette. So this is for project 3. I'm still waiting on some photographs for some of the final things for the paper fabrics, but we can see that it's all being logged and it's all making sense, and a lot of this now is going to translate into some of the work for my paper fabrics and the masks, which I will discuss further in this assignment when I start to narrow down and complete meanings and words. But as we can see, a lot of the sampling is very successful and it has been a very enjoyable assignment.